Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my first ever Q&A video, and I want to thank everyone on Instagram for giving us some good questions. And before I jump into that, I want to ask you to subscribe or like down below, please. And let's go ahead and get started. First one is, how did you get started in real estate? So good question. I started at the age of 24, pretty young. And I didn't have anyone in my immediate family that was in real estate. So a lot of people do, and that's great if you have somebody, because you can start on a team or someone if you know somebody, or work with like your mom or your dad or something like that. That's a good way to get started. Why I got started was I liked architecture. I took architectural classes in college and ultimately ended up majoring in business, but architecture was something that's always interested me. So walking through houses and showing houses, I like that. And I like the aspect of building. And I help a lot of developers, and so I like that creative component to real estate, and also putting together, and getting the house ready. That interests me too. So sort of that whole creative part of staging the house, preparing the landscaping, preparing the property properly on a listing side interested me. And so before that, I was kind of punching a clock at Nordstrom, and I didn't enjoy that, punching in and out every day, watching the time go by and having a hourly position. So real estate is unlimited potential. Obviously you have to work hard at it. You have to be a good self-starter because you're running your own business effectively, and you're a independent contractor, right? So it might be scary for some people because they're, they don't get a paycheck unless they sell something. But for me, that unlimited potential was interesting and has always motivated me. So let's go to question number 2. How do I get started in real estate? So somebody that is not in real estate, how do I get started? Well, I'll tell you a little bit more about what I did to get started. I took classes at a company called Anthony Schools. I don't think they're even around anymore, but basically took my classes to get my real estate license. Did it in about 3 months while I was working full-time, and ended up getting my salesperson's license. So you can get 2 different licenses. One's a salesperson's license, and the other one is a broker license. So you need a little experience and some sales under your belt to do a broker's license, and you really don't need that. So I just get a salesperson license. That's all you need to do. So to get started, first go and take the courses. You need a few college credit courses that can transfer over, or you can take all the courses online and then go get your tests, which might take a month or 2 depending on how booked they are. And then they will give you a real estate license. Once you have your real estate license, you can go to any broker in town and get hired. So the barrier to entry in real estate is actually very low, and that's good and bad, because people have to really work hard to be successful in real estate. So there is a lot of turnover, so some people don't make it. I've been in the real estate business for now 30 years, so I've seen that. But if you have the motivation, it's a great business, and I highly recommend getting into it. And I would highly recommend starting on a team. So if you have, interest, then see if one of the people that do a lot of business in your area are hiring. Typically they will. They won't necessarily pay a lot. They might even ask you to do open houses for free. But if you have your real estate license, you can, start that way. You can get some clientele, easier to work with buyers first, and then work into working with more sellers, because sellers, you can control your time a little bit better, but they're going to demand more of a resume from you, and they're going to, you're going to have more competition with all the other agents to get those listings. So great if you can get a listing right away, but I would start on the buyer side. Question number 3, should I buy now? I think that the biggest thing that buyers are concerned about is if they should buy now is it going to go down in value, right? Is it a good investment? And I would say that most of the time real estate really goes up here. There's a few down years that I've seen, as I said, 3 cycles, but I would always go with investing in real estate and trying to get into the market if you're not in. Because if you're not in the market and you don't own anything, you're a renter and you're paying rent. So that costs you something every month. You're not building equity. So if you can get into the market at an interest rate that you can actually afford, I would encourage you to buy. The two most important things is when you buy, the day you buy, and the day you sell. And in the middle, it doesn't really matter a whole lot, right? It could go up and down, but you sort of want to look at that. So I would say, I encourage my buyers right now to buy because it is on sale currently. And it's off the highs that we saw earlier last year. That doesn't happen very often. So yes, interest rates are a little bit higher, but you can always, if you can afford the property, you can always refinance later when the interest rates are down, but you have the property and you've avoided all the extra competition that you will have later when the interest rates potentially go down again, right? So I do think it's a good time to buy. It's just that buyers have to get over that fear that where's the bottom kind of fear, right? I think that hurts people to want to buy, and you really never know, right, when the bottom is. So I think it's best if you have a need to get into real estate. Overall, it's a very good investment. I can personally attest to that because I've done very well with the houses that I've owned. So I encourage you, if you don't own something, yes, please buy. So the last question I have, what is my most interesting real estate story? That's the question. So I've been in business 30 years. I have a lot of examples, but I'll tell you one. So I listed a property a number of years ago now, and it was a fairly large property, a little over 2.6 acres, had 3 structures on it, and it was a situation where you had 4 sellers and you had an attorney involved. And so we interviewed for the position as a team, and there were several other agents that interviewed for it. And the situation was, we got 3 daughters, without giving names, obviously, but 3 daughters and a brother. And the brother was living in the property and had a bunch of stuff. And so basically, this was kind of an interesting scenario because I haven't seen it before, right? So because they couldn't all agree, the 3 daughters and the brother, they hired another person that effectively became the seller on behalf of them, like a court-appointed receiver, I think is what they called it, right? So that person signed all the offers and all the negotiating and took basically all this stuff that the brother had, because he lived there, was taking care of the person that was his father that passed away, and now they need to sell the property, right? So he's living there, he has all the stuff there, and all these structures are full to the top with stuff. I mean, we're talking a lot of stuff. And so what happened was this court-appointed receiver was hired to take all the stuff away, and they had to take it away in truckloads and put it in a warehouse because the guy didn't want to get rid of it. So that was interesting. And then the guy, because he wasn't, I guess, super nice, they put a restraining order against him and told him, hey, you can't come to the property, right? So we're doing the first open house, the property's vacant, and I'm sitting there, and here comes the guy in his old Porsche, and he drives up, and he looks at me, and I look at him, and I said, hello, and he walks in the house, and he goes in the front door, and he looks right behind the front door in the corner, behind the door, and then he comes back out again. And he says a few more things to me, and then he leaves. And so I was like, okay, this isn't very good, right? So the reason being is because what I had done before he came is I'd walk through the house to see if there's anything left. And there happened to be one thing that was behind the door, which was a baseball bat. And true story, And I moved the baseball bat over to a greenhouse that was I hid it in the corner. So on the property. And so I think that guy was actually looking for the baseball bat, probably to clobber me. When the buyer bought the property, this guy showed up on the buyer's porch with video that they had of him, and they're like, "Hey, who's this guy?" And it was the buyer. So the brother on the buyer's porch. So yeah, it was an interesting transaction. We closed it, and I didn't die, and so that was good. Yeah, that was an interesting transaction where we had a court-appointed receiver, some brother and sisters, and the most interesting thing was I ran into the attorney like 3 years later after it closed, right? And at a restaurant, I said, "Hi, John." I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Yeah, they're still fighting over the money because I guess they couldn't work it out." So that's sort of sad, but I hope that they worked it out. But that was my most interesting transaction. So thanks for watching. Please, subscribe or like this video, and we'll see you next time.